Did you know that some of the most advanced AI tools today rely heavily on these pre-trained language models? Well, these models excel at understanding natural language inputs but often require extensive computation resources during training. And this is where representation fine tuning comes into play. So, with representation fine tuning, you can enhance the capabilities of existing large language models without having to train them entirely again. And this technique allows you to replace just part of this model's representation with custom ones tailored to your specific task or domain, which leads to better accuracy and efficiency. So let's understand this representation fine tuning in details and discover how you too can supercharge your large language models. So what is representation fine tuning? So basically this representation fine tuning is a technique used to improve the controllability and interpretability of large language models like GPT-3. So imagine you are trying to teach a child how to ride a bike, but they keep falling off because their balance is not quite right. So with representation fine tuning, you can imagine fine tuning the way the child balances themselves on the bike. And this means adjusting specific parts of the existing mechanism such as the handlebars or paddles to better suit your need. So similarly, in machine learning, this representation fine tuning allows us to tweak small components in a pre-trained language model so that it performs a specific task more accurately. And by projecting intermediate activations, which are essentially the signals flowing between different neurons in the network onto a smaller space, this representation fine tuning enables greater control over the information being passed around within the model. And this makes it easier to understand what the model is doing and why, which in turn helps researchers identify weakness and areas for improvement. So overall, this representation fine tuning is a powerful tool for making pre-trained models more adaptable and customizable to specific applications. So there are two types of this representation fine tuning. We know this representation fine tuning basically modifies how information flows inside these networks without changing most of this original structure. So out of these two types of representation fine tuning, one is low rank linear subspace fine tuning, or the low reft, which teaches the network to focus on important features by projecting its internal state into simple space. Then another version is called direct or direct intervention reft, which skips some steps that require calculating differences between inputs. And compared to other parameter efficient fine tuning methods, both this low reft and direct, low reft means low rank linear subspace reft, or direct or the direct intervention reft, use fewer parameters and perform better in tasks like common sense reasoning, math problems, and reading instructions. And they also generally beat other similar approaches as well. Now the question arises how this representation fine tuning is different than conventional parameter efficient fine tuning. So to answer this, we know that representation fine tuning is a different approach compared to parameter efficient fine tuning methods like LoRa, because instead of modifying the weights of the whole model or updating just a small portion of its weights, this representation fine tuning add extra modules which are called intervention modules during the training process. And these intervention modules make changes to some of these internal calculations which are happening inside the model, specifically in the self-attention mechanism, without changing the overall structure or size of the model. So essentially, this representation fine tuning alters how the model processes information at specific points in the computational flow rather than modifying the model itself. So unlike parameter efficient methods where changes happen to individual token representation, representation fine tuning makes added to representations produced by specific attention heads or the layers in the model. And both approaches aims to enhance the model performance on downstream tasks but have distinct ways of achieving this goal. So to understand this better, let's try uh, it through the coding. So are you ready to give it a try? Here we are going to use this Pirate, which is a free software tool written in Python by the researchers at the Stanford University. And it works together with another program called Pywin to change how certain parts of a large language model behave during training. Since PyRef was created to work similarly to another popular tool called parameter efficient fine tuning, so moving from one to another should be pretty easy. So let's code. And to understand this code, we are here chatting with your ref model using Python and PyTorch after training, and we are saving this model in the Hugging Face space. So for this, we have followed these steps. First, we have import the required libraries like transformer, pyref, NLTK and spec. Also import necessary functions from pyref like prompt no input template, pyref configurations. Then we will load the pre-trained LLM model, that is the Meta Llama 3B, 3 and 8B instruct into the memory as usual using auto model for casual LM from transformers. And then we will initialize the REFT framework by creating an instance of REFT module, and we will set the target ranking. And to be used to factorization, in our case we are taking this target ranking as 4. Then we will get the reference model configuration from the original module using getReft model, which is provided by PyReft. Then we will set the default device to CUDA and print out the list of trainable parameters that will be considered during factorization. And then we will create a data set which contains some sample prompts and the corresponding responses. So here we shall use make last position supervised data module to create a supervised data module which return labels based solely on the final positions of inputs. And the examples given here are all QA style prompts. Then we will define the training arguments such as the number of epochs, batch size, learning rate, etc. And will initialize this representation fine-tuning trainer class using REFT trainer for casual LM from PyReft. Specify the saved location where the checkpoint files will be written during training. You can also specify whether to log the process during training or not. And then you will train the model using this train method of this REFT trainer class. And this process evolves iteratively, computing gradients, updating weights through stochastic gradient descent, and storing intermediate activations for later use. Then after successful training, you will chat with the trained models by providing new questions. And here we use prompt no input template. So from this PyRef to add placeholders to the questions without actual input values. And then we will tokenize the question and pass it to the loaded model along with the base unit location. And will generate according to specified settings such as maximum length, sampling strategy, etc. And will decode the generated response using the decoder from transformers. Now to share the train REFT model, move the model back to CPU and save it on this Hugging Space using save method. And don't forget to specify the repository names when sharing via Hugging Face space. And just remember, when you are using this representation fine tuning to improve this big language models, they require careful consideration of several factors to achieve great results. And some points to keep in mind while implementing this REFTs include choosing which layer to modify. And specifically we can start with all layers and then gradually decreasing, intervening at multiple positions. And then we can also remember about starting with a low rank value like 4, allowing the weights to be shared between layers, and remembering that traditional neural network have a lesser impact on this representation fine tuning compared to its unique features. Thank you.